Good morning, everybody, and welcome back. It's been a while. It's been 2 weeks now. 2 weeks, Jesus, sorry about that. I have been a busy mofo in these last 2 weeks. Around the middle to the end of March, I'll probably tell you why I need to fucking de-escalate, deflate, decompress about this last few couple of months. The people that I've worked with here, the stereotypes that you get about Japanese people. I'm working with two people now that just shit on that whole tradition. But I can't say out yet because I've not quite locked myself down a job yet. And I know that my future employees are going to be going to my work that I'm at now, and I don't want to burn my bridges just yet. But as soon as I've locked down a job, I'll give you a full and intensive podcast about what the fuck has been going on in my last 4 years of my life. I might get a friend to interview me about it, to be honest, because I think if I just do it myself, it'll look like I'm just a moaning fuck. And let me tell you, you tell somebody your problems, 90% of them don't give a shit, and the other 10% are happy. Or in my case, 10% don't give a shit, and 90% of the people that I tell are happy. So I don't tell anybody. But I have a podcast where I don't have to fucking speak to anybody apart from myself and the people who listen to it. So I can say whatever I want. But I've got a couple of friends that I've been telling what's happening probably on a weekly basis at things that they've been doing. And I think I'll just get the greatest hits together for an episode later. Anyway, today we are a few days past Valentine's Day. It's Saturday morning, the 17th of February. It's only 7 o'clock in the morning. And I'm sat down here in my living room instead of upstairs in the studio because I've been doing a lot of shit online, working online. So I'm getting up now at 4:30. I'm having to exercise first thing in the morning, and I'm at it on the computer at 5:30 getting work done. That usually finishes around 7, and then I'll go to work. But that's where my life is at the moment. So getting a podcast in while the kids and wife's still in bed, I think is how it's going to be on a Saturday now. Because the last couple of weeks, I've just not had that time to think about when I can do this. But yeah, now on a Saturday morning, just after 7, perfect time. So, in Japan, at the end of March, everything changes here. Now, I know in Europe, it's September. The kids go back to school in September. They start the new school year. Here in Japan, it's the end of March. And like I've said before, my daughter, whose birthday is the back end of March, she is the youngest kid in her year. Out of about 300 kids, she's the youngest. So I don't know this for a fact, but I think the school year in Japan starts at the end of March because of the cherry blossoms. Because everybody gets that nice cherry blossom class photo when they start the new school year. I'm sure it's about that. Yeah, where everybody else around the world starts in September, here it's the end of March. Now, because I didn't get to this fatherhood game till later in life, I've still got my kids at home. One's about to turn 13, the other one's 10, going on 11. So they're not kids, but they're not ready to. I'm not ready to kick them out yet, which is unfortunate. But they're still here. Now, what I've been seeing this last few weeks, friends I've got in Japan, their kids, some of their kids are going now. Some of their kids are off. The kids are going to study in universities in Japan. So they're moving out of their house for the first time. Some of these kids are going to America, to England. I've got a friend who's sending the kids off to New Zealand. Now, I don't have to start thinking about that for another 8 years. If my kids are not dumbos, which I don't think they're going to be, they take after the mother in that aspect and not me. So if they're not going to be dumbos, they're going to get themselves into a decent university and off they'll go. Maybe they'll study somewhere closer to home and still live here. If they don't, the house is going to be empty. My daughter, I think, if all goes well, she's going to be gone in 6 years, and then the lad will be gone in 8. So in 2032, when yours truly will be fucking 61, Jesus Christ, I'll be 61, 60, 61, we'll have an empty house. We'll have an empty house. And what I'm seeing now is there are people, friends, acquaintances, people I know that are becoming empty nesters. And what do you do? Now, I have no idea what me and my wife will do once the kids have gone. Because once the kids have gone, we're going to have to find something to do that we've both got an interest in. Now, I will never retire. I think we've made that perfectly clear to my wife. I will never retire. The reason being, I've seen what it does to people. I've seen enough people in my life that have just been working towards getting retired. And then when they do retire, they're fucking done within 5 years. They are fucking done, dead. So I will always carry on working. That is one of the reasons why I've moved a lot of my work online. Well, not one of the reasons. One of the reasons is I fucking got fired. But I've now discovered a thing that I can do anywhere in the world. So I've been talking to my wife now, and we've been thinking, right, once these kids get out of the house and they go to university, we can work anywhere. I've got a computer with an internet connection. I can work anywhere. I've proved that this last couple of months. I've proved that because I'm working at home and I'm working online. So if we're getting these Japanese salary and working in the Philippines or Vietnam or Thailand, going to be living like a doctor, a fucking doctor in these countries on a Japanese salary. So that has been an option. I think, taking the example from my mum and dad, they became empty nesters when I was, when I was 16, I got out of the house. So at 16, my father would have been 46, which is 6 years younger than I am now. My mother was 43. So they had the house to themselves when they were in the mid-40s. Now, my dad then retired at 52. So he retired, but my dad were one of these fellas that kept himself busy. My mum refused to retire. So what happened with them was, my dad would do all the housework. My dad would get the tea on at night, and my mother would come home and she'd have nothing to do. Now, all my mother's friends would say to her, "You're living the dream, Sandra. You're living the dream." My mother didn't like it. She needed something to do. So then, for 10 years, no, it was longer than that actually. For 12 years, my dad were just retired. All the house were maintained, the gardens, everything were done. Just waiting for my mother to retire, and then they could enjoy the retirement. My mother retired at 60. She retired at 60. Finally, we get to retire. We can do whatever we want. So they had 2 years of retirement. 62, mother starts going down with dementia. So they've put all that time and effort into working towards a retirement. They get 2 years of it, and it all goes to shit. My dad looked after my mother, so she started with dementia at 62. She died 15 years later. So my dad had to look after my dad's retirement for 15 years was looking after my mother with dementia. Now, if that doesn't tell you something, you've got to find something that you've got to do together once the kids have gone. You've got to carry on working. You have to carry on working, I think. Seeing what my dad went through, I will carry on working until I cannot. Excuse me. That's what I'm planning on doing. Now, I've no idea what me and the wife are going to do when the kids are gone. I think them of you that haven't got kids, you've got to, you know, some of you might have chosen not to have kids. Some of you may want them, but you don't have them. You already know what it's going to be like growing old together. And I think you've got the advantage over the rest of us. I think retirement's not going to be as bumpy for you as it is with them that are going to be empty nesters. Now, I'm just fucking blowing shit out of my ass today. But I have no idea what me and my wife are going to do. We had stuff in common before the kids were born, and then the kids are born. It's all fucking hands on deck. Cleaning up shit, piss, food everywhere, drawing up walls, crayons up your ass, smacking pulling kids apart constantly. But you're in it as a team. Now, once these kids go, I think the lad is looking forward to 5 years from now when he gets the house to himself and he'll get everybody's full attention. He's looking forward to that. But being an only child like I was, I think it's incredibly boring. I remember Jean went off to a soccer camp last year. Sophia were only here for two days by herself with no brother. She were bored shitless. She were missing him. So yeah, I don't know. He's looking forward to that. I'm telling you. I don't think he realises he'll miss her. And then the lad'll go. And then you're together by yourself. What do you do? What do you do? The stuff we used to do before, we used to travel, go to loads of different countries all times a year because we didn't have to worry about school holidays. I wasn't working in the schooling system, so we could take us holidays whenever we wanted. Went to Iceland in February. We went to Hawaii in September. Didn't have to worry about kids. You could do whatever the fuck you want. Now, are we going to drop back into that 20 years later? Are you going to want to stop in these cheap hotels? Are you going to want to go hiking on glaciers when you're in your 60s? Are you going to want to climb Diamond Head and have a look down on Honolulu? Are we going to want to do this shit? I've toyed with the idea of cycling across countries, cycling across Japan, cycling across Thailand and Vietnam when I'm in my 60s. I can't see my wife doing that. I really can't. She'll come and meet us somewhere when I go somewhere nice for a week or so, but I don't think she would want to fly off to some country while she's in her 50s to cycle across it. She's not that type of person. So what I think will happen is we'll just pack up here in Japan and go and live somewhere cheap while I can work online and she can do her thing. And hopefully she can move that online as well. But the empty nester thing, you see these people now, especially in Zusha where I'm living, the kids have gone. The parents are at home by themselves. You very rarely see people in the 60s and the 70s and the 80s, Japanese people, together as husband and wife. It's either the fella or the woman by themselves, walking around by themselves. And I wondered this. And my Japanese teacher is in her 70s. And she guilt trips me into studying. So I've got to study now, just so I don't let her down. But she told me, me and my husband do nothing together. We do nothing together. So her husband recently retired. Well, recently retired 2 years ago. He gets up in the morning. He does his exercises. His friend, his ex-colleague, comes and picks him up at 9 o'clock, and they off they go and play golf. Off they go and play golf. My Japanese teacher, Yoshioka Sensei, she works for an hour and a half every Wednesday night, and that job is teaching me. She teaches me Japanese. That is her only thing that she does, some volunteering. She meets up with her friends, and she does things during the day in the community centre where she works, but she does fucking nothing with her husband apart from have tea with him at night. And that's it. So I was asking her, what did you do? I was asking her in Japanese, what did you do after your kids left home? What were the transition like? And she just said to me, well, we looked at each other for a couple of weeks and then said, well, this is weird. You do what you do, I'll do what I do, and then I'll meet you for dinner at night and we could talk about his day. And apparently that has worked fine for him for the last 27 years. I said to her, are you happy with that? She said, oh, it's great. It's great. And she said the best thing about their retirement now is 4 years ago, one of her sons had a kid. So now what's happening is a couple of days a week, they'll both go and pick up the grandkid from school and look after the grandkid until the parents come home. And that sort of brought them back together. But, excuse me, but you kind of think, Jesus Christ, the kids brought you together, the kids leave home, you sort of drift apart a bit, and then after a few years, one of these kids has a kid, a grandkid, and that sort of brings you back together again. So the only thing that's keeping you together is the kids. Yeah. And the thing here in Japan, I know more so than England. I don't know about you. I know in Europe the family bond's a lot stronger in Europe, especially Spain. Here in Japan, that family bond it's so fractured that I worry when my kids bugger off coming back home for a couple of days twice a year. I don't want that. I want to be seeing my grandkids growing up. I mean, obviously my dad doesn't see the kids as often as I'd like him to because I'm fucking continents away from him. 8,000 miles away from him. My wife's parents live a couple of counties away, prefectures we call them in Japan. She only sees her parents twice a year. I mean, in England, you're just in each other's pockets all the time to the point where, oh, this fucker again. But I would like to find that happy balance. An happy balance. That's what we all need, an happy balance. But I don't know. I don't know how it's going to play out. I've said to my wife, look, we need to find something that we've got in common. And she said, oh, it's fine. You just do your shit, I'll do my shit. And I'm sort of fine with that, to be honest. To be honest, I'm fine with that. But, yeah, it's a bit brutal when it comes to that. I know before my mum started going tits up, my mum and dad were together 100% of the time, doing shit together, going places together. To the point where, because I were away by then. I'd gone. So even if I think I were at home and I would go and visit, it seemed like you'd put them out a bit. You know, you'd turn up for an hour twice a week. Oh yeah. It seemed like they'd be watching Emmerdale or Coronation Street. They were enjoying the time together. They were enjoying the retirement together. When I would go home, in that sweet 2 years where they had a retirement, I'd be going and seeing them every day. After about 3 days of being home, remember, I'm only seeing them once a year. After about 3 days, oh, you're back again, are you? Yeah. We were just sitting in garden reading this paper. But yeah, all right, yeah, no, sit down. So I don't want it to be as intense as that, where you're in each other's pockets. But I don't want it to be completely separate lives where you're just living with a roommate. Now, my friends and acquaintances that are going through this now, send me information on how you're getting through it. For them that don't have kids, you're getting up there. What are you doing? I mean, what do you do when you've not got no kids? You just go to these fancy brunches. You go and take holidays places and live in style. Go and have an upper class holiday. Ugh. No, thank you. But it's only a short one today, and it didn't seem very positive, to be honest. I'm sorry about that. But me thinking about what life's going to be like after the kids go, when they're not going to be gone for another 10 years, tell me it can be positive. Just do that. Anyway, I've got about a month before I'll be dropping the podcast, where I can just decompress all that shit out of me. But I will be back next week. Same time, same place. We're back to weekly. See you later, everybody. Adios.